I'm cutting it out early today. Um, I have the wrong background on for some reason. There we go. Look, uh, this is where I usually, talk about what's grinding my gears. Um, in lieu of that, though, I want to take this opportunity to apologize to everyone watching this tonight. If we want to sound silly and use jargons for everything, you could call it a self-criticism. My initial idea, was to make a joke out of it, right? I was going to say that what's grinding my gears right now is traitors, and then talk about how irritating people who barter are, right? And how they should just stop doing that and use money because people think it's weird. But honestly, it's not appropriate at a time like this. Well, maybe a little appropriate, but regardless, this is serious, and I want to address all of you in a serious capacity. I want to say that these last few days have been nothing short of amazing. You have no idea the strength and discipline and support that I have seen. The Communist Party, to a member, stands united. And I've seen it in Telegram chats and meetings and social media posts announcing it to the world. Nothing can wreck us. Nothing can break us. Nothing will force sides to form within this organization. And it makes me proud that I get to serve all of these adamantine men and women as part of their national leadership. Real quick, I just want to point you to the wording I used in that last sentence, because I think it's important. I said serve. This role that I'm playing, it's difficult. It's not one that I ever wanted to be in, that's for sure. I'm usually happy to just be with my family, out under, what they used to call the big Ohio sun, with a warm breeze going, and we'll hang out at the park, play some football. That's it. I'm content with that. But I was asked to serve, and serve I will. And in that service, I believe I've failed you guys somewhat. And that's what I want to talk about. Look, there's really no easy way to say this. Someone we brought in when no one else would have them, that we decided to give a chance despite all of that, despite so many red flags of individualism and liberalism, that someone has betrayed us in the worst way imaginable. This was common for the super liberals who ran around calling themselves a revolutionary before we came on the scene. But it is not common for us. Mr. Shaw came from this institute. It was this institute that gave him a chance. And for that, I sincerely and humbly apologize. I believe that our kind nature and adversity to cancel culture was taken advantage of. And this is not a mistake that I will ever make again. When Mr. Shaw, who, by the way, isn't actually a professor, but did attend Ivy League colleges, so take that for what it is, when he came to us, we saw him as a, very misguided and politically confused super liberal, but someone who wanted to be something more. We believed that we could help bring him along in that regard. We believed that if he was being honest about his wanting to be a communist, then he would have to begin learning real Marxism, right? Rather than the super liberal Trotskyism he had mistaken it for. And then we could sort of position him to organically make this discovery himself, just by exposing him to the real deal, to actual dialectical logic. But, well, for anyone who suffered through his wrecking videos, you can probably tell that didn't work, right? I mean, he's still using dialectician to refer to his Trotskyite worldview, right? Based on what, by the way, I'm now calling super liberalism, because Wolf Communist used this, and it's fantastic. That's unfortunate, though, right, that this is happening. But what's more unfortunate is that we truly believed Danny was our friend. And that's why we gave him all the chances that we did. You know, he speaks of politically incorrect jokes and he complains about them, but in the moment, he was doing those jokes along with the others. Frankly, he did them quite a bit more than a lot of other people. For me, when someone begins plotting behind the backs of the people that he calls brother, when he begins lying and trying to turn brother against sister and sister against brother, and this is the context such a situation comes out of, makes me realize one big thing. Once a trot, always a trot. So I'm going to promise you guys this. Maybe I was naive in the past, right? Maybe I was too nice. I am from the Midwest. It's what we're known for. But those days are gone. I am not so soft as to let my ego or my fifis blind me to the importance of the liberation of humanity through the proletariat and not through Ivy League professors, or to understate the importance of the American Communist Party and what it means for our new era. I am never, ever, ever going to allow records in our midst again. Forming sides within the party is something that can never, ever be tolerated. And honestly, I believe this is why they had to hide their grievances. Since we've established proper procedures to air grievances and sort out problems that focuses on, actually reaching resolutions, right? The issue is that super liberals are not interested in sorting out and resolving problems, right? They're interested in getting their way, in feeling special. And I believe this is what it comes down to. Danny spent decades and decades in the fake left. He believed that he was in a position to mentor everyone else, right? And how do you tell a guy who thinks of himself like this, who's wasted so many decades, that everything he's done in the past was a waste, failed, was not even really Marxism? How do you tell a guy who's telling you he's one of your good friends that? You can't, right? But anyway, if someone's actually interested in resolving problems, in order to get to work, they must always be open to critique of their critique. They can't simply demand everyone take it at face value, especially when there are zero real reasons for it. They can't simply say, this is how it is, and then not listen to the other side of the story, right? It's in listening to the other side of the story that we can even begin to make sense of a given situation. Otherwise, as any actual dialectician would know, we have only an abstract view of the situation. To be concrete, we must understand the development of a problem in all its complexity, all its necessity, in interchanging components. But once a trot, always a trot. And we all know what Trotsky spent his life doing after he didn't get his way, don't we? In our situation, what does such a thing serve other than the ruling class, making people waste their time on this nonsense when they could be serving their communities or engaged in the class struggle? Anyone can use big language, make wild claims. It is only the communists that can back them up with the real necessary development and concretization of a situation. Simply calling yourself a dialectician and saying, but we're dialecticians, is what a child would do, playing pretend. To be a dialectician, one must actually learn dialectical logic. And well, I don't know. Once a trot, always a trot, right? Anyway, let's start the show, huh?
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said: you look like a Russian, you look like a red. That is
What's up, everybody? We're back. I'm Noah, and this is Noah's show. Unfortunately, our special guest, one of my closest friends and colleagues, Carlos Garrido, had to cancel on us at the last minute. Carlos has a very young child, and he had a family emergency, so I apologize for that. But here with us tonight is our producer, Sebastian, and we got a lot to talk about tonight. What's up, Sebastian? Say hi to everybody.
Hey, I'm glad I could fill in from Daniel. And I apologize in advance if I mess anything up, but this is my first time doing anything like this, so hopefully we'll have a great stream.
I think you'll be fine. Already my microphone is messing up. It won't stay in the proper position. So it wouldn't be this show if we didn't mess something up right in the beginning. But that's all right. There's, besides like all the crazy wrecking from people who swore on their lives they would never do such a thing, they would be honorable, be, men of their word and conviction. It's always the same with liberals, and I'm so sick of trusting liberals that I'm just done with it. But besides that, there's like a shit ton going on in the world while we're in our bubble, right? We had well, first of all, it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day today, which I think is a bigger deal than people often think about. Look, a lot of people don't understand the revolutionary significance of Martin Luther King Jr. and how he led this nation into the future in our third revolution, which was a political revolution, right? We refer to it as a civil rights movement, but that moment changed this country for good, and there is no coming back from the victories of King's movement. And I think that's really important to recognize, especially today, since he's the only civilian in American history to have a national holiday named after him. I don't know. What do you think, brother?
Well, I think it's very clear why they want to revise his legacy. And oftentimes, him and Malcolm X are hand in hand, but we were given this sort of sanitized version of events in which he's basically displayed as this liberal who went and peacefully marched, peacefully demonstrated, and that's obviously not the whole story. But if they gave it to us, then we'd have stuff to look up to concretely.
Sorry, I'm trying to fix my microphone keeps dipping on me. I feel like I need to like hunch over. Look, yeah, you're right. And it's funny because Lenin talked about how they were doing this to revolutionary heroes in his era, right? They were doing this to Marx himself, removing the revolutionary soul from Marx. And I don't know, there's a lot of other sort of faux leftist positions going around these days that, they will claim to say, oh, King was fine, but everything they say, to be logically consistent, they would have to view King as a sort of naive reformist, like a daydreaming lib that couldn't ever change anything when the history is incredibly clear. Right.
And on top of this,
before we get overwhelmed, Sebastian, hold on, because we got 3 already. Akos, thank you so much for the 5. He says, hello from Czechoslovakia. Hello back from America, brother. JK's a new member. What's up, brother? And David, one of our faves, who is an integral part of this institute. Thank you for the $2, brother. He says, evening, comrades. So I don't know. Evening back. I got nothing funny to say about that.
No, I just wanted to say, like, along the same vein, I saw a tweet earlier, and it basically wanted us to like divorce young Marx from old Marx, and I think it's this sort of like liberal tendency to remove everything from its context when that's exactly what we need to understand, rather than the person themselves, looking into their personal life, their personality, how they may act in a meeting, going back to staying on topic with the Danny situation. But yeah, it's this sort of tendency to put the person in front of what they actually are, what they're doing, and the context in which they exist in particular.
It is, and it's typical of what Marx and Engels would call a metaphysical mode of thought, right? Where they need to separate old Marx from young Marx, Marx from Engels, etc., rather than understanding that Marx was a process of development in and of himself. There's no old Marx without the young Marx. And honestly, there's no young Marx without that old Marx coming later. That's the product of it, right? They're sort of mutually interdependent, right? That you can't have one without the other. And I think that's actually where a lot of the incorrect notions on King and the civil rights movement, et cetera, come from these days. I mean, they come from places of people who really want to understand history and the class struggle, et cetera. So they'll talk about how the Black Panthers, right? They were for a black nation, or the old CPUSA had the black belt thesis, right? But they don't talk about how that was a question before the civil rights movement, right?
Mhm.
Before integration, before the Great Migration, and before where we're at today, which is we need to be clear about, and every time I bring this up, liberals will sort of try to dance around it as if it's still the days of Jim Crow, but this country is less racist than it has ever been in its entire history. And that's a monumental achievement that we can attribute to King, right?
Yeah.
People
And
died for that.
yeah, and without that qualitative change of the Third American Revolution, sure, we could be having different conversations, but to ignore what happened is to rewrite history again. And
Right.
we're definitely not in the same position that communists would have been prior to that movement, prior to that revolution.
Exactly. It was an open question back then, right? And it's just not anymore. And look, there's an issue of dogmatism that runs throughout the history of our country's communist movement anyway. Even the most brilliant among us had that in it, because it's sort of baked into American pragmatism and how we just carry ourselves and how we've developed in order to sort of get around, right? That's where the black belt thesis comes from, rather than seeing the development of a young nation into a people. They saw it as separate nations because they were viewing it through Soviet conditions, right? Importing Soviet conditions into America because that's who they were learning from. And we can't blame them for that, but it was still wrong. Can you link our Discord in the chat for us real quick, Sebastian?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So, yeah, I think it's really important to commemorate King as one of our greatest revolutionaries. And like, that doesn't
Oh,
take
the
away
link might
from
have
it.
broken. That might be what.
I don't think that link will ever break. Like, it's set to not break.
Okay.
I went in through it earlier. It could be some old one they were using. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, I just sent them the Midwestern marks. Yep.
perfect. Okay, so we got one other big thing I want to talk about before we get into the show tonight. And that's that we have a new president. He got inaugurated today. Did you catch the inauguration, or like he gave this like big speech beforehand that I listened to that was crazy?
Yeah, I was at the hospital actually with my grandma, but my mom was there in person, so she sent across a couple of videos, and I'll have to talk to her about it, obviously. But
It was cool.
different politics, but obviously the rational kernel is there.
It was, and I don't know. It was a mixed bag. Obviously, Trump isn't the Trump of 2016 anymore. He's just
Yeah.
not.
And we saw that shot of all these tech oligarchs standing in the front row, and I think to anyone who's being honest with themselves, it sends a very, very clear message. And to
It does.
us, that's great. It's more ammunition to work off of.
Right, it does. Like the when he gets in bed with JD Vance and Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and still tries to posit himself as anti-establishment somehow. Well,
yeah, and the whole TikTok situation as well. I think I saw that Mark Zuckerberg spent like $8 million lobbying to get the app removed. And I don't know what the situation is now, but I heard people whispering about, algorithm changes, perhaps
Yep.
Meta now being intertwined with the app. But, it's clear what's happening there as well.
Yeah. So what I think it's going to be is, so back in the day when they first decided to censor TikTok because it was too harmful to the military industrial complex, the biggest Midwestern Marks account that we'd built got banned immediately. As soon as American content moderation got transferred to this corporation called Oracle, who, if anyone looks into them, they are very, very shady. As soon as that happened, we got banned, right? But we build up again, and then this whole TikTok ban was going to happen, and people started. What's crazy is just going to Chinese social media like Red Note.
It backfired tremendously. Yep.
I'm watching video after video of regular Americans talking to Chinese people going, "Oh my God, our government has lied to us so much about you people. This is crazy." Which is good, which can only be a good thing. But what I wonder is if that registered in some way. And Trump in his rally speech said something about the US owning half of TikTok, which I have to think is crazy. But I don't know what he meant by that. So I guess we'll see. I think if it stays, it'll be an even more censored TikTok than it was. What was great about TikTok was that the algorithms weren't gamed. If you made a legitimately popular video, it would go viral. There was no, throttling, no artificial boosting, none of that, which was nice. And that's gone for good, I think, no matter what. I don't know. But there's a couple other things that Trump mentioned that I think are interesting. First, he spent a good 20 minutes just walking around in circles talking about how illegal immigrants are all from prisons and gangs and mental institutions. He said those words at least a dozen times in 20 minutes, and it was like, whatever, get over it. But what I think is interesting is that he said that they're going to be declassifying a lot of previously classified information, things on the Kennedy and Martin Luther King assassinations, which will be really interesting. He said they're going to get rid of DEI on a federal level, which, okay, cool. He said they're going to make it official U.S. law that there's only two genders. Okay, cool. And then he talked about getting our oil industry running for the oil that's here in America, and that's worrying to me because that belongs to the American people, and it's going to go and be stolen by whatever connected oligarch is able to purchase it, and they're going to make trillions off of it, and our economy is still going to continue decaying. And that's really the bottom line. He did say that he wants to try to stop World War III, which I guess is cool, but whatever. Anyway, why don't we get to it and start the show, huh? What do you think? Should we do that? Let's do it. Isn't that way of doing it way better with the short intro there? What do you guys think? Anyway, I got like a bunch of crap going on here. We need to go to this. There we go. All right. Who's our first caller, Sebastian?
So our first caller is Pavel, and he just wanted to talk about how to deal with liberal takes on prioritizing like liberal ideas over just improving material conditions.
Sure, bring him in. What's up, Pablo? How you doing tonight, brother? Pablo, speak to me, Pablo. I think Pablo's dead, guys. Oh, there he is. What's
He's
up?
here, I think. I just heard him. Yeah.
What's up, man?
It's a pleasure to hearing you, Noah, again.
Absolutely. How you been?
And seeing you in the new year. So, do you hear me?
Yes. Once I turn my volume up, I will.
You hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, let me mute.
No. You're good. You're good.
Okay. So basically, I have a question. I'm surrounded in work by fucking liberals all around me. And I know very many people who, after, let's say, 70 years of US empire, have all liberal tendencies. And in the moment, I try to, let's say, pop up the idea of socialism or defend, for example, the advancements, for example, the Soviet Union made, or even, let's say, socialist Poland's, despite all its faults, I get immediately bashed around, but they were so suppressive to their people. And as I'm reading currently State and Revolution, the question should have been, of course, oppressive to whom? But in the moment, those people do not listen anymore. They just say all oppression is bad, while not realizing, while some of them might even acknowledge this, that this shitty system we have currently now, capitalism, is not working at all. But they would not be willing to basically suppress those people who are a risk, even if we manage to get to a socialist, basically, society. So basically, it breaks down to all suppression is bad. So we cannot move. So we better stay where we are, because at least we can have our liberal freedoms to give our opinions about meaningless stuff, while virtue signaling to everyone, while everything rots around us, and while not addressing the main contradictions surrounding us, or at best, only virtue signaling around them.
Yeah.
It's really hard to deal with it, because I try to push back, but they immediately, let's say, tell them, well, then you are also an authoritarian. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's sort of, people are given by mainstream media or whatever, like key terms that allow them to dismiss anything you're going to say, and authoritarian is one of them. So I try to take a different tack and stay away from the areas that are going to get them thinking of words that turn their own brains off. Right? So one, when we talk about, we have all these liberal freedoms to say this and say that, do we?
No, we don't.
Because
we don't. Not in the moment we actually point out the main contradictions. So all these liberal freedoms are basically within the, let's say, allowed window of discourse, which is absolutely meaningless, because the allowed window of discourse does not affect any of the, let's say, main contradictions we have in front of us.
We don't have freedom of speech. We have freedom to whine at nothing. As long as our voice can change nothing, sure, why would they even care what we say? And no government cares what people who can do nothing say. Never been true.
That's why they love also Trots so much.
Right. I also try to concentrate on the fact that we think about how social change happens wrong. We act as if we have a choice in what society is. We can either have this type of society or that type of society. And if we want it to be this type, well, it'll stay this type as long as everyone wants it to be, right? But change happens imminently as a reflection of a contradiction that exists somewhere objectively already within society. There's already a class struggle happening, right? This is leading to something.
Class struggle is constant. It only intensifies right now because basically because the whole imperial system of 300 years basically is crumbling right now.
Exactly. And what communists are the people who believe we have a way forward, who have a proven way forward. If they want to talk about the Soviet Union, begin reading books on the Soviet Union, and you can sort of give them little factoids. If they want to talk about China, begin reading books on China, and you can give them little factoids, sort of debunks on the mainstream media narratives. As long as you have the sources, they never, ever will, right? Say, oh, I actually read that that's not true, and this is why, and this is how, and here's what the primary sources say, and this is how they lied to us. I think that kind of argument is compelling, especially when framed as, look, I'm not saying we should do X or Y. I'm saying Z is already happening, and we need to acknowledge what is happening and try to take hold of it in such a way as to create the best outcomes for all. That's how I work it anyway. Real quick, thank you, ReZero Cult Leader, for the 5. You guys are awesome tonight, by the way. Thank you all so much. I don't know. What do you think about doing that, Pablo? I can give you some book recommendations if you want.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if you give me some. I'm currently, I finished Imperialism by Lenin. Currently, I'm reading State and Revolution. But if you can give me some otherwise dealing, for example, with liberalism, or like say with some good examples, it would be nice. That would be great.
Absolutely. So Lenin's fantastic. Obviously, he's fucking Lenin, right? But for Soviet historiography, there's a book called Blood Lies by Grover Furr. Check that one out. Okay. On China, modern China, there's one called Socialism with Chinese Characteristics, a Guide for Foreigners by Roland Boer, Boer. We've actually spoken to him at the Institute. He's a super nice guy. But yeah, that'll get you some good sort of debunks on the major narratives, or start reading the constitutions and send them links, right? If you can read the 36 Soviet Constitution and tell me this is more authoritarian than the US right now, I'm either going to call you crazy or a liar, because you look at that and it's a mapping of democracy. Workers' democracy, obviously, but you know.
Yeah. I still have to find some sources in Poland, because I still don't understand why the health care system in Poland was crap in the 70s and 80s in socialist Poland.
I don't know a lot about
excellent there. Heavy industry was excellent there, but the healthcare system had serious issues.
You know, the Soviet Union had a few really big issues with its healthcare system too, and a lot of it came from the fact that the U.S. was trying to choke the entire communist world, trying to prevent them from getting. I was thinking
also already along the side of sanctions.
Yeah, precisely. Anyway, thank you so much for your call, Pablo. We're going to keep moving because I think we got a lot of calls lined up tonight.
I had still a second question, in general, a thought experiment, but I don't know if you have the time for it.
Let's make it quick.
Yeah, okay. Then a general question to you, maybe something also to think in the ACP around. I'm working in, let's say, in the pharmaceutical area, as I'm also a chemist. And I frankly would prefer if the company I work for would be just fully nationalized, because the fucking management does not contribute anything, zero, to the to the production of, let's say, medicine.
Right.
And there's one problem which I have observed, that the production process is usually heavily, let's say, fractured. So you, for example, your starting compounds, you synthesize them in one country, and then you get them delivered basically to the second site where they are basically used to produce the final product. And here I have a question. How would you deal with a nationalization of the pharmaceutical industry, which in my opinion is heavily necessary, because those parasites are on the one hand abusing the workers who are working there, and on the other hand, basically ripping off the patients. How would you deal with nationalizing it if, for example, the starting material, the starting substances are synthesized somewhere else?
Well, it depends.
It's just a thought which I had. Maybe it's completely uninteresting for
Yeah,
you, but it was just a fit.
No, I get you. So this is a giant question, and it's not a quick answer. But to give a quick answer, the way we see such things happening is in a multi-pronged approach. That yes, some giant corporations, especially the pharmaceutical conglomerates, can be nationalized or broken up. But remember, when the working class takes power, it's almost a sure thing that intellectual property is going to be a thing of the past. All these patents that are designed to prevent more competitive, cheaper manufacturing of the same substances, they're going to be gone. Right. And so such a thing can bring down the manufacturing costs of these drugs and other chemicals really, really, really significantly. There's also government subsidies. There's also, frankly, running at a loss because the medication is necessary. All these things depend on, I'm going to use my favorite quote from Stalin, everything depends on the conditions, time, and place. So it depends on what medications we're talking about, what companies we're talking about, etc. But thank you again for your call, Pablo. I love talking to you, brother. And tune in next week. I'll just announce it right now. Mac from RTSG is going to join us for another debunking anti-communist lies. And we're going to be going over the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. And so he's going to have a lot of really, really good Soviet historiography for us next week.
Much appreciated, Noah, and I hope everything is well with your family. I wish you a nice evening.
Thanks, brother,
for your time.
Take care. All right, Pablo's a frequent caller of our show. We love hearing from Pablo. Who do we got next, though, Sebastian? Let's move right along.
Yep. Next up, we have Skeptical Mantis, and he wanted to discuss or debate Black segregationism. And it's particularly topical today as it's Martin Luther King Day. So I'll drag him in here right now.
Tight. All right. What's up, brother? How you doing, Skeptical Mantis?
Yo, can you hear me?
I can barely hear you, but hold on a second. Thank you for saying I have a nice shirt, but I'm not Eddie. It's called Noah's Show. I'll pretend to be Eddie. No, that's okay, Pat. We're just going to pretend you didn't correct yourself. I'll be Eddie for the rest of the night. So, Skeptical Mantis, I just got out of wrestling practice. What's going on?
Is Carlos on the show as well?
Carlos is not here. Fortunately, Carlos had to cancel last minute. He had a family emergency. He's got young kids, so.
I see. I got you. I was hoping to call in a day like today when I thought there would be at least two of you guys, because I know you didn't have time to watch the video, but it would be good for you guys to listen to your own words, because all four of you, including Nick Cruz, gave very, I think, divergent answers on the question. And so, like, me calling in to talk to you is kind of like, that's just a piece of it. Like, I'm curious about how all your questions related to each other, too. I don't think they were, like, that united.
Well,
it would be good just for the audience, in my opinion, if you could play the 4-minute video. If not, it's fine. But I
Yeah.
think your audience would benefit from hearing your own words. I don't speak in this video whatsoever. You know, it's
No,
just
look,
you guys answering the super chat.
that's okay. Look, I can tell you that Carlos's like views and mine are the same, even if
Okay.
we don't describe them the same, because it comes out of my own theory that we call the American trajectory, or how the American people are developing into a singular people over time, right? Over the so far 248 years of history in this country. Now, Nick
Okay. So
has a
does that mean
different,
that you agree with?
right?
Do you
Um,
agree with Carlos's statement that America is a black nation? I wasn't going to
absolutely.
start with this. I was going to leave this till the very end because of how funny it was. But did you agree with that statement?
Yes. Have you ever heard in dialectics, there's a saying, things turn into their opposites, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
as you got to remember what Marxism really is. It's not, a group of policies. It's not a system of values or moral judgments or whatever the liberals want to tell us, right? It is a study of development, of how things move and change and become what they become. Now, America is a black nation is a statement that is qualified by the fact that the black proletariat specifically has led the entire country forward in not just one, but two incredibly important revolutionary moments. First, at the end of the Civil War, by forcing the issue of abolition into the public sphere against the wishes of their class allies in the northern bourgeoisie, right? This was nothing the Union Army wanted to do. In fact, Lincoln even specifically said if he could win the war without ending slavery, he would do it, but he couldn't. And the uprisings and revolution at the end of the Civil War that deprived the Southern planters of their much needed labor for their war machine is what forces this question. And by the way, begins the first ever dictatorship of the proletariat in history. In certain US states, we call it Reconstruction or the Reconstruction of democracy. Now, the second one, and this is
Would
important.
you agree? Can we agree that Reconstruction was militarily defeated?
Oh,
and overthrown?
let me finish real quick. And this is important because it's MLK Day. The second one, they lead us forward again during the civil rights movement. There is no America without the black proletariat, and we can see this reflected in the way we speak, in our art, in our culture, in our music, in our food, etc. Right? What are the most popular musics in America right now? Rock and roll and hip hop. Both black music, right? There is no America
A lot of
without.
people like black culture, but they don't like black people. It's
Well,
a very common
it
thing.
doesn't matter what people like or dislike. What matters is that this is what builds who they are, whether they even know it or not. That's the materialist view of social consciousness, right? What that famous a quote from Marx, where he says that it's not the consciousness of men that determines his existence. It's instead his social existence that determines his consciousness. That all of this development went into who the American people are right now. And that is led and primarily centered around the black proletariat. And that's what Carlos meant by
So if a large
a
section
black
of the American
nation.
people,
You gotta let me finish my sentence, and I'll let you talk.
all right.
And that's what Carlos meant by saying that America is a black nation. Go ahead.
Okay, so if a large section of America doesn't like black people, but they like black culture, I think that matters as a communist.
It doesn't.
That matters in terms of how we're going to relate to these people who are enemies and who are friends, long-term friends, short-term friends. Of course that matters.
Sure.
Right? Wouldn't Eugene Debs agree that,
Yeah.
fighting racism is a good thing and all that? You guys, at least on paper, agree with that, right?
No, of course. And that's, yeah. If someone
Okay.
irrationally hates black people, that's a very silly thing to me. But what I meant when I said it doesn't matter, I mean in regards to the fact that America is a black nation.
So you guys are the black revolutionaries then?
Do I look black? No, I'm
That's
not
my
black.
point, bro.
I mean, come on,
That's
look
my
at me.
point.
I'm like the whitest white ever to white a white.
Sir, I understand that. That's my point. It's silly.
But it doesn't
I wasn't
matter
going to start
because
with this point, like I
Americans,
said, because it's so just
I'm trying to
ridiculous.
explain
But
what he meant when he said America is a black nation. That there is no America. There is no such thing as an American without the black working class. It is an essential part of what created all of the development within what is an American today. An individual's opinion on if that's good or bad, or if they like a black person or hate a black person, is irrelevant to what creates them, materially speaking, as a person. You see what I mean?
sure, maybe an individual's opinion, but if a large number of white individuals in this country really hate black people, that would be a cause of concern for a communist, right? And that would
I mean,
influence your
look in
strategy
history, right?
somehow.
Look in history when the communists were the first ever integrated political organization in the entire country, when they were calling for the death penalty for lynching, right?
I understand
I
that.
mean, it's
That
kind of
was
a
a certain
gimmick.
time. Yes, communists had some good positions at certain times that were very ahead of their time. I totally understand that. I also consider myself a communist. So you don't have to convince me about that. They also abandoned the black belt thesis at different times, right? And took
Yeah, well,
white
it was
chauvinist positions, in
theoretically
my view,
flawed.
at different times, right?
It was theoretically flawed, though. Why would you keep
Okay, you
an
referred to the
idea?
civil rights movement earlier, right?
Yeah,
Because that's where I'm placing my question. In that super chat, I said the Black Panther Party had a point in their program where they called for a vote on whether or not there should be a black nation. Eddie's
okay.
response was that the black belt thesis only applied to the time of segregation, but this wasn't the black belt thesis. He didn't, I guess,
I
catch
don't,
that. This
I
is
don't think
after the Civil Rights Act. This is the Republic of New Africa that
right.
was upheld by many
I
members
know
of the
what you're
Black
talking
Panther
about.
Party.
Yeah, I know what you're
So
talking
his
about.
whole
I don't know what
answer
you mean.
was
I
basically
said.
saying that it was outdated because it was from the time of segregation. So that was factually untrue.
I
Eddie,
have no idea
I
what
don't
you're
know. It
saying
just
that
seemed
I.
like he was
Wait,
regurgitating a point.
you gotta hold on a second. I don't know what you're saying that I said.
No, Eddie.
I don't
He said in the video that I linked to you, he said that
that the black
the
belt
black
thesis
belt
went
thesis
from the
was
time of
outdated because it came from a time of legal apartheid in the US. But my question was about the Black Panther Party program from 1968 and the Republic of New Africa, not the black belt thesis. There is somewhat of a distinction. So it
Sure.
just seemed like, I guess none of you guys were aware of that. But his whole first part of his answer is all about how it was outdated because it was from segregation. So I'm just trying to clarify, this idea comes post segregation and it was upheld by the Black
Okay.
Panther
Yeah,
Party
I
until
get what
Huey
you're saying.
changed everything,
I get what you're saying. Okay. So it was after the Civil Rights Act passed, right?
They put it in their
Form-
program around 1968 in the second
Right,
version
which
of
is a
their
couple of
program.
years after the Civil Rights Act passes, right? So formally
Mhm.
speaking, Jim Crow is ended. Concretely speaking, is that the case yet? No, right?
Of course not,
Really.
but many of them continue
It's
supporting this position to this day.
It's still going through.
The most advanced people of that time still, even to this day, the
Right. It
Black
was
Liberation Army members that are still alive, Assata Shakur, she's still a new African
okay.
nationalist. She still supports
Fine
the
for
Republic
her.
of New Africa.
Look. That's fine for her to be. I don't care what Assata Shakur thinks. She can think whatever she'd like, right?
But
From my
it's not just
position-
Assata Shakur, it's all the surviving revolutionary Black Panthers uphold this view to this
except
day.
for the
So
ones
saying
that are
it's
super
outdated,
liberal
like Eddie's
Democrats,
not
you
the one
mean,
to decide if
or
it's
that started
outdated, right?
selling drugs and betrayed the rest of the Panther. I mean, the idea that everyone surviving
Wait,
from the
who started
Panthers
selling drugs?
is like calling for segregation is just not the truth. The Panthers
Hold on,
were destroyed.
who was selling drugs?
A ton of ex-Panthers turned into gangsters
Yeah, it
and
was
drug
Huey
dealers.
Newton. It was Huey Newton that was selling drugs. What I'm talking about is the New African Nationalists. They actually suppressed
That's
drugs
fine. That's
in
fine.
the
I get.
community.
Look. I get what
You
you're
should
saying. You
learn the
gotta
distinction
stop
between the
trying to talk
sections.
over me, buddy. Please. Okay, just calm. Take a beat. All right. Look, I don't want to have to tell Sebastian to mute you. I don't. We got to be able to hear each other. Okay. So they can think whatever they like, right? I'm not going to go out of my way and try to argue with them. I don't care what they think, right? If they're correct, they will be proven correct. But here's the thing. I'm going to tell you this. If you pulled Black Americans right now and asked if they wanted to segregate or not, I guarantee you will probably, well, I don't want to guarantee, but I would put money on them saying no, they view themselves as Americans, right? This was a question at a time in our past. It absolutely was. And it held water, and it was a good debate to have. But in 2025, when we have gone so far past the civil rights revolution and continued developing as a single people, right? I just don't think that we can say it's still an open question. I don't think that we can just say, oh, the Panthers said it, so it must be correct, right? Just because someone said something, even if it was correct back then, doesn't mean it's still correct right now. Or even if it was correct in one part of the world, doesn't mean it was correct in another part of the world, right? Marxism has a dialectical relationship that we call the universal and the particular, right? And we have to understand what we're talking about. We have to understand that all things are in development. We can't treat today as if it's 1968. We just can't. It's not 1968. It's 2025. And believe it or not, this country is less racist than ever before in its history. And that is a monumental achievement. Monumental, especially when you think about lynching, when you think about human slavery, when you think about the Ku Klux Klan and how powerful it used to be, right? These days, people mock the Ku Klux Klan. And that's important. These days, racism is not socially acceptable. And that is an incredible win. Incredible. My kids grow up right now looking at kids of all skin colors as equals. When my dad's generation, when he got here as a baby, they were not taught they were equals. They were taught to live separately. And that is no longer the case. And that is huge. And the reason I'm talking about all this is because back then, during my dad's generation, it was absolutely a legitimate question to ask. But right now, I just don't think we can ask it in the same way. I'm sorry, I just don't think it's correct. And if you want some good reading on this, one of the greatest revolutionaries in our country's history, Henry Winston, who was the longtime Black chairman of the old Communist Party, wrote a very, very good book called Strategy for a Black Agenda. And in it, he critiques a lot of the ultra-left problems of the Panthers. The Panthers were young and they had nobody to guide them. That they were able to do what they did is a huge achievement, but that doesn't mean they were right about everything, you know?
Okay, can I answer? Because I had hoped that we would be able to have more like of an exchange of ideas rather than you talking for 10 minutes straight every time I try to make a point. I get it, it's your show, but like it's really hard for us to get anywhere when it's like everything is a huge historical tangent. If you don't mind, with all due respect, like I'll keep my comments really to the point if possible. It would be good if you could also, because like
go for it.
You know, it's hard to even remember my point sometimes after you talk for 10 minutes straight. Okay, so I think a long time ago when you started that rant, you said that if we polled Black people today, they would probably say that they wanted to be American rather than their own nation, or that they were American.
No,
right?
no, yeah.
I actually agree with you there. I actually agree with you there. If we held a poll like that today, the Puerto Rican nationalist movement has had many official votes. I'm pretty sure other national liberation movements have used votes as a tactic before. So the whole point is to like gauge people's, basically to answer your hypothetical question, like how many people would want to be independent, how many wouldn't. So I would pose the question, if we polled all Americans right now and said, do you want to be a communist country? Wouldn't we agree that most of them would, because of many misconceptions, they would agree that communism is bad? They would not want to be a communist country?
I think the issue here is with language. Every single working class person I ask and talk to them about the substance of what communist is, they're all about it, and they of course want it, and it's just a word. So that's different than talking about the substance of segregating this nation based on skin color again.
It's not
right?
about segregation based on skin color.
But that's what you're
It's
talking about.
because there's already white people in the area. From what I understand, over half of Black people in America still live in the South. It is much less than it used to be before the Great Migration. I recognize that. But there's still a large contiguous territory that can be a Black nation if they want to.
The issue
There's only
isn't-
one way to find
Yeah.
out if they want to, and that's not by proposing these hypotheticals, because we're in a relatively low point of political development regarding some of these questions. So yeah, you're right, it's about language. Maybe if you say, oh, do you want to have racial segregation? Of course people are going to say no. But if you explain, because I also don't want racial segregation, it's about a Black majority area being able to have independence and sovereignty. And there's no reason that
so
people who are not Black couldn't also be in the area. It's not like they're going to be shipped out. That's
Okay.
a misconception that I've
Okay.
heard from Eddie before.
So what
I
you're
don't think
talking
any
about is, hold on. I need to ask you about, hold on, buddy. Hold on. I need to clarify something. So what you're actually saying is you want to sort of like localized, decentralized, like libertarian style community-based governing system. And so is that what you're saying?
Well, the idea of the Republic of New Africa is to form a contiguous Black nation state based in the places where Blacks are concentrated in the South.
So it's basically the Black Belt thesis.
In a sense, but I think there could be some differences, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Harry Haywood kind of see it as being
Harry
something that
Haywood
would
got kicked out
happen?
of the party for wrecking.
His position was very influential
Ultra-left.
at important times before they basically liquidated the Black question.
They
So
What is-
that's
liquidated the
irrelevant.
Black
The position
question?
still
No.
stands. I
No,
still
no,
think the position stands, regardless of what you think about Haywood personally. The position still stands, and it's had longevity.
It's had longevity in tiny, insignificant fractions of the country.
You could say the same thing about communism.
No, you cannot.
I think you can.
No, the Communist Party was gigantic when it was what it was.
I'm talking about right now.
And
Right
the
now,
most
we're at a
viral,
point
and
where
the
these
most
ideas
viral
are
Twitter,
relatively
and the
marginal.
hey,
That's not a
stop
reason to
interrupting me,
deny them.
dude, please. And the most viral Twitter account was one of the leaders of the Communist Party. Now that it's reconstituted itself, we really can't say that. Look, I get that you like these guys. I get that this is a thing, but it's not about what people want. It's not even about polling, right? The polling was just my way of getting across the intuitions that people already have, that they see themselves as American, when back in the day, that was not necessarily the case, because they were kept out and then they fought their way in. And to me, it sounds like you want to use all of these old Marxists to try to take that away from them and take the essential nature of what the modern American is out of that, right? And split it apart. And what that does, whether we call it that or not, is it segregates us and balkanizes the country. I don't see how that's different than what the Groypers want. right? It's just using different words to describe the same thing. And I don't think the Black working class in this nation wants anything like that. And I
But
think
there's only one way to find out.
if it happens that somehow their social consciousness completely changes, right? And they decide they're their own thing again, no one's standing in their way. That will be the process of history. But this is an objective process we're talking about.
Okay, I appreciate the last thing you said, and I'll give credit where credit is due, because I remember in the video, Eddie also said that they'd be open to groups that wanted sovereignty. So at least on paper, at least verbally, you uphold that. And I do think you deserve credit for that, because some people will claim that the Black nation never existed or that it doesn't exist anymore. Like, do you believe that it doesn't exist anymore?
I don't. I think that the nation is American, and that the Black proletariat is one of the central and most important parts of and components of what makes us American. And to sort of explain that, I want to go to your guys, the Panthers. They had this interesting theory that was sort of the embryo of a theory they called intercommunalism, right? Which was proletarian internationalism applied to the unique situation of that tumultuous time in America, right? Where they saw different communities within America as having allied interests, right? Where they were obviously kept segregated and separate, but the working class within these communities could have a similar structure to what the Comintern built. And that's what the Rainbow Coalition was the beginning of, right? Now, they never really fleshed out the theory. Obviously, Huey Newton had his problems, and unfortunately, what happened with him, it happened with him. But I think they're onto something there. But I think that's only one step in a whole process of development that didn't end in 1968 or 1972. It continues on into 2025, into right now, where I believe that the cross-racial working class alliance that the Panthers and the Young Lords and Young Patriots and all those groups only dreamed of can actually happen in a real way because of the continual development and continually growing closer as a singular people. Now, lastly, in Marxism, Stalin lays out in the very beginning of Marxism and the National Question what constitutes a nation, what things develop into a nation, right? And he talks about how nations are not racial, they're not tribal. And he gives the example of France, right? Being built out of the Teutons and the Greeks and the whoever else, and Italy being built out of the Romans and the blah, blah, blah. Like all of these different nations built of different races and tribes, all living together and having all these things in common over time. But most importantly, interconnection through economic intercourse, right? Read the beginning of Stalin's Marxism and the National Question and come back next week. I don't want to be, I sort of want to be fair to the rest of the callers, so I don't want to spend too long, even though this is a great call and I think we're having a good conversation. But let's leave it there. I'll let you say one more thing.
Wow, one more thing. That's so hard to decide.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. But I do want to thank you for sort of like not like going crazy and starting screaming and calling me a jerk or whatever. Some people do that.
I can see why, to be honest, because it is hard to answer like 20 points in a row. And I know it's your show, but I do think we could have made more progress if we both would have had a short time limit, because I'd really like to be brief.
The problem is there's two problems. One, I'm long-winded and I ramble and I know it's an issue.
Workers don't like that.
Believe me, I know. My coworkers yell at me about it all the time. But no, the second point is the real one. I need to build up what my actual point is. My actual point is always the thing right before the end, right? But I need to get you there. I need to give you the context. I don't want to just make a statement. I want to give you the reason that I believe the statement is true.
Yeah, but sometimes all those extra, you should give like the main 1 or 2 reasons and then elaborate if you need to. Because when you give 20 reasons, you kind of like take away the force from your main reason. That's just my opinion.
Cool. Well, thank you. I'll think on that. I will. Anyway, thank you so much, Skeptical Mantis. That was great. Feel free to call back
This
next
is the
week.
last thing I want to say. The last thing I want to say.
Okay, go ahead.
If you
real
ask
quick.
Black people in America if they consider themselves to live in a distinct community, do you think they would say yes? Is there a Black side of town in your city? Are there Black neighborhoods in your city? Because I'm pretty sure there are everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I grew up in one.
Okay, so there you go. You know, they don't just live anywhere. Mexicans don't just live anywhere.
Yeah,
Certain
that's
ethnic
not a
groups
nation,
don't
it's a
just live in
community.
any place on the map, right? We're not integrated just yet.
I agree.
I'm
but
open to integration. And actually, my point will be completely undermined if a white communist revolution that is genuine develops in this country. Then I will change my position.
I don't
But
think
as
it's
it
going to
stands,
be a
when
white.
I talk about these points in some of these like white communist like settings, people get very hostile. And that in itself, like they get hostile insisting that racism no longer exists. Not necessarily you, but some of these people in these chats get hostile, insisting that racism doesn't exist anymore, or like, you know, we've moved past that because of the civil rights revolution, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, yo, I wouldn't want to be bound to these so-called communists who don't respect self-determination.
I get you. Okay. Thank you so much for your call, Skeptical Mantis. That was great.
Okay, I hope we can talk another time because I feel a lot of things were unresolved. But
Well,
yeah,
feel free to call back, brother,
time.
anytime you want. Look, I want to address something now that I can kind of get it out. He was great, but he likes to derail me. I kept trying to bring it back to what's developing, right? We have to look not just at a moment in time. We need to look at how time relates to itself. We need to look at where we were and now where we are. And in that, we find out where we're going. When he says, like, he's thinking in this racialized way when he said, you know, if there was a white communist revolution, there's never going to be a white revolution. There's going to be an American revolution. It can't happen without Americans, right? I don't know. It's very wild. And Wade makes a really good point. Integration is happening at higher proportions than ever before in our history. 1/6 of all new marriages are interracial. And most of those are white people marrying other types of people, mostly because the majority of people here are white. That's all. I think it's funny because, like, I talked to like Black friends about this, and they could not care less. Usually, it's usually, like, I hate to say it, and I don't want to bag on Skeptical Mantis because he was kind for the most part, right? But I don't know, man. Maybe it's just what white people I've spoken to about it, but they are the ones that seem so passionate about other people and trying to give their views to them. Anyway, who do we have next, Sebastian?
Yeah, next up, it'll just be Corvus, and he just wants to talk about AI, the ethics involved, and its development.
Awesome. AI is so interesting.
Oh, no, actually, no, sorry. Before Corvus goes on, it's John. Sorry.
Oh, you screwed up, you failure.
Yeah, it's he just wants to talk about the role of like religious institutions in early socialist construction in America.
Awesome. Bring him up.
Yep.
What's up, John? How you doing tonight, brother? Good to talk to you again.
Hey, Noah, I have some very important questions for you.
I bet you do.
So, my first question is, have you heard about the silkworm race?
The silkworm race. No.
It ended in a tie.
Hmm.
Yeah, I didn't want to string you along with that one, but I just drank some coffee, so I'm a little high strung. But other than that, though, today's more serious question or more serious request. What is I know it's something that many in the ACP have discussed before, like the integration of religion and communism in the American context. But what are some specific highlights or examples, say in the 1800s and 1900s, or even the early 20th century, that might be like integrations of socialists and communists with religion?
Mm. Well, as I mean, that's a great question. All of American history really is radical Christians and utopian socialism. Really. Yeah, Zoya, stick around. Me and John can get going and never stop with dad jokes. Sorry. But no, so like going back to even the three great utopians, right? Robert Owen, his colonies like New Harmony, that was here in America, right? The radical like socialist Christian tradition was gigantic here. Gigantic. The Shakers were here, the Quakers were here. Actually, on the topic of the struggle against the color line as the primary form of American class struggle, it was the Quakers who circulated the very first petition against slavery in this country, right? And this goes all the way up to the early 20th century, right? With the Communist Party basically allied to churches all over the nation. I mean, half the clubs in the country were meeting in churches. And we shouldn't even, I mean, do we really even have to mention the civil rights movement and our nation's greatest revolutionary, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right? Who came straight out of the pulpit of a Baptist church. And I don't want to sort of get carried away on the last caller, but if what he was saying were true, Martin Luther King wouldn't be American, right? He would have been some other entity, meaning the American flag that was behind him, like it's behind me now, in all of his famous speeches, and everything he wrote about being American. That would all be just him being naive and wrong. And I don't accept that. I don't. So I'll leave you with this because it is one of our greatest religious revolutionaries quotes, and it's his day, so why not? Because it relates. He said that we may have arrived in different ships, but we're in the same boat now. And thank you, Mac, for the membership. Mac is going to be here next week with us, everybody. Stick around to watch him tear the misinformation on the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact to utter shreds. Someone scoop that membership up, by the way. They go really quick these days. Anyway, what do you think, John?
Well, that's a very relevant one for today. But another one, this might be, I guess, more in a empirical or practical direction, but what are some notable inventions by American communists?
Oh, man, you tell me about those. That's your area, brother.
Hopefully, lots of puns.
Well, hopefully, according to you and me, maybe not other people.
Well, since you're the carpenter, I hope you've nailed it.
I doubt it. I believe I really screwed that one.
Yep, otherwise we're all hammered.
Yeah, well, sometimes you drill one, sometimes you don't.
Yep. Well,
Anyway,
if a carpenter ever becomes
I'm
a
starting to
prospect,
get very bored.
well, I heard that a carpenter trying out yoga really liked planking.
Oh my God, enough. All right, thank you, John. What can I say? He gets me. I don't know what else to say. I love terrible puns and dad jokes. It's just kind of my thing. Anyway, Who do we have next, Sebastian?
Now it's Corvus.
Okay. Oh man. What's up, Corvus? How you doing, brother? Corvus. Oh no, is Corvus dead?
Oh,
Corvus,
I'm sorry.
don't die!
Sorry.
No, it's okay. What's up?
I'm doing all right. I hope Danny is. I mean, not Danny, but Daniel is doing okay. And I'm sorry for the betrayal of Danny. That Danny had on for the betrayed the Institute and all the ACP comrades. I'm sorry about that too.
Thank you. Look, I mean, we learned a valuable lesson that if it looks like a trot and walks like a trot and talks like a trot, it's probably a trot. I'm done trying to help people like that. That's all. I'm done.
Okay.
It's not worth it anymore.
Yeah, but hopefully Daniel's doing okay
I hope
since he's
so,
out
too.
today.
Last I think he's in Puerto Rico right now. He said he was taking
Okay.
care of a sick aunt.
Ah, okay. But anyways, my question was, since a lot of people seem to have a concern about the ethics of artificial intelligence, let's say when the ACP takes control, how would they address these ethical concerns about the development and use of AI? Like, say, scraping, like, say, data or art that artists did not consent to this, or say something like that. How would they address that concern and still develop AI along the lines of the Communist Party program?
I mean, that's a good question. But I think that the people who are concerned about artists, look, you're the one that made your art public. People are going to see that. I mean, I don't see the difference in an AI taking a painting in as part of its processing, right? And someone tracing a painting and then adding to it. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need all of these intellectual property laws. People can experience art, in my opinion, in a far more in-depth way with AI, because I look at it like a tool, like any tool, right? People act as if it's this like evil computer with a consciousness who's stealing from everyone, but it's the tool of a person using it, right? When a graphic designer puts into their AI, give me 30 image options for XYZ and whatever, right? They're using a tool. They're just saving an enormous amount of time from having to do all 30 of those options themselves in Photoshop or whatever else, right? I see AI as almost solely a good thing in that regard. Now, if for some reason there was this like coalition of millions of artists all over the country who were like, yo, we don't want our art taken into account in AI, like, I don't see why they couldn't keep their art outside of it for some reason. There's a difference, I think, between a people's AI, which is what we would be developing in communist America, and these AIs that are owned by these giant Silicon Valley cartels like OpenAI and the rest of them, right? Grok and all this other stuff. Yeah, I think that's what I would say. What do you know a lot more about AI than I do, though, Corvus? So I'd like to hear your opinion, actually.
Well, actually, I don't know a lot about AI. I'm more coming at this from an artist perspective because I'm a poet and writer. So I was just wondering, because I hear a lot of that from the artists themselves about this concern about the ethics of it. I would imagine that if there were enough pushback against it, you could have a kind of opt-out option where you could just not like have it like use your art, I guess. I don't know. Or you
Right.
could give financial compensation for using the art. I don't know, but that would be up to the Communist Party, I imagine.
Yeah,
It's not a big deal. It's not a big concern for me as much as it used to be. Because if it's for the proletariat, I would imagine it wouldn't be as harmful as it is as a tool right now under the capitalists.
that's a really good
Correct.
point. If it's sort of like a people's AI that's being used on behalf of the people, I think that's a whole another bag of bananas than some evil Silicon Valley cartel using it to just steal money from people basically and steal their data and their shopping habits and blah blah blah. You know what they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think it's difficult to answer these questions concretely is the problem because we're not yet in a context where we have to, right? As
Right.
we have to, there's experts who weigh in on things like this in any government. I'm not an expert on AI by any means, so I couldn't tell you what even our options are. I just kind of think about the Marxism of the situation and what seems likely.
Right. I was wondering how, should the Communist Party get into power, you could think it through it like a philosopher thinking of ethics, and would it be right, or should we have an opt-out option for them if they wanted it? Let's say something like that. But that's what I always wanted to know, really.
Yeah, I think that it depends on what the people want and what the best courses of action are, right? I think we got some help from our friend Julie here who says artists need to publicize their art to earn from it. AI companies scrape the internet of these artworks without compensating the artists to create art, and it puts them out of business. But my question is, does it create the same work as this artist did? Or does it use this in a giant array of pieces of art that are found all over the internet to inform unique pieces of art based on inputs from users as a tool? So basically, it's like saying, well, if I invented a new style of paintbrush, right? That all you had to do was this, and then push a button and it would paint the picture for you. And then am I stealing a paintbrush from someone else that used it to paint a different picture? Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm just looking at AI differently than Julie is here. I don't know. I don't know enough about the question,
Yeah, I imagine it wouldn't replace artists completely, because it probably replace low skill work, or low value artwork, something like that. But it wouldn't harm artist overall.
Yeah, I don't know why it wouldn't help them. Like for me, it just seems like, say you're a comic book writer, right? How much more work can you get done if you don't have to do it old school and draw it by hand? I mean, think about just how they use computers nowadays and draw right on their tablets or whatever, right? Now, that goes into hyperdrive if they're able to just input what their story is and their character, input everything and then choose from what the AI spits out. You could put something together like that with your new tool and it could go so much faster. I don't see why we wouldn't want to be more efficient,
Yeah. I don't really have much of a problem with that. I still have some concerns that I hear from other artists, but it's I feel that it would be handled better under the Communist Party than it would by corporations, obviously.
For sure. And look, I think about it this way. In a communist country, if there are working class, actual working class people that genuinely have a problem with this, then the Communist Party listens. I mean, look at what China did when people started protesting the zero COVID policy. They changed it. That's just, it's kind of what you do. It's like there's a relationship between party and people. I don't know. But I think that was a really interesting question, regardless, Corvus. Is that all you got for us tonight?
Thank you. I think I have a question regarding, like, I was considering joining the ACP, and I think there's like a lower commitment level on there now. Is that right?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
I can't commit a lot right now, but I could join that lower commitment level if you can.
That's perfect. And that's where our future cadre are going to be gotten from. So it's this sort of, I forget the name of the status. I could probably look it up because membership isn't my area, right? Let's see, acp.us. All right, so go here, apply to join. Oh, I forgot. I got it. I'm already on here on my my Telegram, so I can't join again.
Obviously.
Yeah, so I don't think I can see it. That's interesting that I can. I wish I can't remember what we were calling it. But it is a lesser commitment level, where basically your job is to sort of learn about the party, help out where and when you can, but there's not as much required of you as we require of our cadre, right? We require a lot of the cadre. We really do. It's for people that thank you, John. John says it's recruits.
Recruits, okay.
Which is exactly what it is, recruit, right? The Communist Party's cadre are people that dedicate their entire lives to the class struggle, that are fighters, right? And the recruits are there to see if that's what they want to do, and they're to help when they can. So they're not full timers; they're like part timers, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, and Bishop's telling me it's not out yet. We're going to be beginning something big with that soon, so stay tuned. Again, like, membership isn't my area. I'm dealing with theory and finances, so I'm my side of party work is very different. But yeah, I absolutely joined at that level, and I think that sounds perfect for you.
Okay.
Great. All right.
Thank you, Noah.
My pleasure, Corvus. Great to hear from you again. What's up, Sebastian? Who's next?
What's up? It's just gonna be West Country Kami, and he has a question, or rather, he just wants to sort of discuss and debunk some ideas around communist quote-unquote dictators.
Cool. Tell him he needs to not talk as fast as he usually does, though.
Okay.
What's up, brother? This is our friend from England, one of the only good British people. I'm just kidding, West Country Commie. We all know there's no good British people.
Oh, yes.
I'm joking. What's up, brother? How are you tonight?
Oh, good to be back on there, Noah. It's been a while. Always fun to come on. Got me thinking of stuff to say. As an excuse to come on.
Absolutely. My microphone is like all crazy tonight. You see it falling on me? I need to fix this after tonight's show. I didn't even know it was broken. Anyway, so yeah, what's up? You want to talk about communist so-called dictators, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good thing to talk about. Usually I'm quite good at finding some good stuff to mention in these shows.
Absolutely. And yeah, Bad Wolf, I was joking. He knows I'm joking. We love our brothers and sisters from England for sure. Go ahead. The floor is yours, brother.
Yeah, well, basically, though, just to kick things off, I've got part of a speech here made by Walter Ulbricht, first General Secretary of the GDR, made in 1957, on why there was no formal opposition there. And, well, if anyone there wants the full speech, I can link it in the chat later on, but I'll just read it out right now. Some citizens may ask why we have no opposition and think that an opposition is part of a real democracy. But democracy does not reign where various parties act against each other, where the power of the working class is divided and an opposition exists. After all, an opposition in the GDR could be directed only against the policy of our government. It would therefore have to be directed against the introduction of a 45-hour week, against the construction of an additional 100,000 apartments, against the low rents, against the stability of our prices, against the low machine tractor station rates, against the high expenditures on science and culture, against our peace policy. It would have to be directed against the unity of the working class, against our workers and peasant state. It'd have to favour of employing militarists and fascists in high positions of power, of the NATO War Pact, and of preparations for a nuclear war. Tolerating such an opposition would be criminal.
Very well said. I think, yeah, there's this interesting sort of liberal dogma, right? That you need multiple political parties to fight each other for that to be democracy. And I say, how? Why? You know, in America, when 1776 was happening, this was something the founding fathers here did not want multiple political parties. They wanted one or none. And it was a good idea. And it was an even better idea when the communists did it later on, right? Because real democracy, where does the word democracy even come from, right? It comes from two Greek words, two of them, demos and kratos. Demos meaning the common people, meaning the proletariat, meaning those without property. And kratos meaning power, or power of the people, right? As long as the people are actually in power over their own lives, right? Actually have the say in how their lives and country is run, that is democracy. The different structures you use to get there have to be contextual. That's how I see it anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, feel free to comment on this if you want to, but I think one thing in the West, though, I mean, with some people, I think there's just a real lack of imagination, really. Like, they can't really see past this just liberal idea of just two capitalist parties competing with each other.
Yeah, oh, you're totally right. And what's funny is, like, when I actually talk to people about this, and I'm talking about, like, not, you know, online nerds that put hammers and sickles on everything. They're another bag of bananas. I'm talking about just like regular coworkers, people out in the world that I talk to. Everyone sort of has to admit at some point that, wait a minute, Democrat and Republican, like, constantly undoing what each other do isn't giving the people power. Like, when is the last time that the people picked a candidate? Lenin has a great quote for this. He says that in capitalist countries, every 4 years, they get to choose who's exploiting them. And it's true, but, like, we don't even get that. We get to pick from between two options given to us by the ruling class. And that's wild. There was a recent study, I want to say that Yale did it. I forget, in Right America 2, check out Paul Cockshot's article, but another British friend, by the way. And he goes into it on American oligarchy in this Yale study. And I'm going to feel bad if it's like Harvard or something. But they prove that the regular American people have no say whatsoever over any policies of our government. And it's actually only the ultra rich that have something of a say.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, can you hear me there still fine?
Yep. And it's funny because that's what Marxists have been saying forever. But now that these, like, academics at Yale say it, now everybody pays attention.
Absolutely. I mean, as another good example, though, I mean, just look at approval ratings, though. I mean, our beloved Prime Minister Keir Starmer barely has any popularity. On the other hand, look at someone like Xi Jinping, who the majority of the Chinese proletariat support, because he actually does put their interests first.
Exactly. And this isn't rocket science. Like, there's something like a 90% approval rating for the left-wing leader in Mexico right now. I forget her name. She was a good friend of AMLO's though, in his party, blah, blah, blah. Xi Jinping, Putin, like all of these leaders that are actually helping improve the living conditions of the majority of people in their country, the people like them. Imagine that, right? Like, why is it that people in America, I don't know if people in England are the same, I assume they are. Like, why can we not, like, sort of understand this fact? And I think it's because our government is constantly lying to us and shoving this, like, oh, you need this, this, and this to be democracy down our throats, really. What do you think it is, West Country?
Well, honestly, I'd say what the American people have, that's very similar with the British people. I mean, just with the example of Putin, though, like our ruling class media, well, bourgeois media, they've just been hammering the Putin dictator plot for so long now, especially with the whole special military operation in Ukraine. Like, they've been pushing that for so long that many people are still buying it, although hopefully slowly but surely we can break through that.
Yeah, I think it's coming. A lot of people changed their minds after Tucker Carlson interviewed him, right? Look at this whole 90% approval reading for Putin at Statista.com. I mean, there you have it. So our government calls Putin a dictator and says everybody's oppressed. Putin's oppressing them. Look out, Russians! Putin's going to oppress you. And then the Russians got to go and like dive out of his. I guess he's throwing oppression at them. I don't know. But it tells you something. If 90% of the people in Russia approve of him, and what was Biden's approval rating, like something like 30%, like almost the exact opposite. How are we the democracy where the people are in power and have what we want, and they're the dictatorship?
Yeah, it's just liberal BS, really. That's all that can be said.
Absolutely. And you know what's even sadder are the people who like call themselves communists that say this kind of stuff. Like, I can forgive someone that's been sort of brainwashed by CNN and MSNBC their whole life, right? I can forgive them because you're really only as good as the information you have access to. If you never see anything else, how would you even know? But people who call themselves communists or Marxists or whatever, that, you know, say this silly like inter-imperialist rivalry and, oh, Putin's an evil authoritarian, I have no intolerance for them anymore. It's just pretending to be a communist, and it's dishonoring a word that I take very seriously.
Yeah, no, you're just pretty much listing every single Trotskyist party in Britain right now. That's exactly how they view the conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I know that the Revolutionary Communist Party.
Go for them.
The rebranded, 50-year-old trots that are doing the same thing they did under their last 3 brand names, which is march around with stupid flags, making the word communism look bad. How people
pretty much them.
That's an op, I have no idea.
I know.
Like, the whole point, communists are regular people, right? And everything that like makes us look like weirdos like that is clearly against communism, against the working class, and therefore on the side of the ruling class, right? So when you got 8 people marching down the street, or even when they get 20 or 30, whatever, 8 college kids, 30 college kids marching around with hammer and sickle flags, beating on drums and shouting slogans, doing nothing, all it does is people watch it and they go, oh, that's a communist? Those guys are fucking stupid. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I mean, I just coming on another thing, but now we're on Trotskyism, though. I mean, one thing that they always do, though, is that they always put themselves so far ahead of the masses, talking all this like very left-wing language, and people just think they're fucking weirdos, really. Like a true revolutionary has to go with the masses. That's what that's the thing that Stalin got right, and well, Trotsky just blowing over his mouth anyway.
Oh,
that's what anything he was good for.
Trotsky wasn't exactly a very big fan of the masses.
Oh yeah.
He kind of hated the peasants big time. That was his whole permanent revolution, was because he just really hated peasants. What are you gonna do? Once a trot, always a trot. That's our new slogan. Anyway, what else? Do you got anything else for us? Because we're heading up against our time for the night.
Not really. I think that was the main thing, really. Just getting on, having a chat. But I mean, it's always fun too.
Absolutely, brother. Always a pleasure when you call. Feel free to call back anytime.
Yes, I need to think of more stuff to say.
Excellent. Well, any like anti-communist myths you want to help debunk, feel free to bring it on, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'll do my part there, Noah.
Awesome, brother. Good talking to you. We'll see you next week, hopefully.
Yeah.
All right.
See you later, then.
I think that's going to wrap it. Oh, man. Michelle, thank you so much. Great to see the show. Make 2025 a red year. Noah, thank you so much. Member for 2 months. That's awesome. I do want to mention that, like, my maybe nonsensical title, Bigfoots and Better Things to Do, is a reference to my essay in the latest issue of Red America, which is called On the Bigfoot Question. You know how all the old Marxist questions are like on the so-and-so question, on the women question, on the national question, etc., right? Well, this one is on the Bigfoot question. And what it does is it proves through, saying, what if we discovered Bigfoot? It proves that dialectical logic is the only way that we can even begin asking the question of what a human is. So if we want to know what we are, materially speaking, we need Marxism. Thank you to Dial. He says I did a pretty good job. And by the way, we're now going to call ourselves Bigfoot Communists because that's just fucking cool, I guess. Anyway, did we have anybody left? I assume you timed it so that we'd be ending right around now, Sebastian.
Yeah, those people came in later, and I think they're not at their computer currently anyway. So,
all right. Well, if you want to see if we can get one more, and we'll take one more for the night.
Yep, I'll hop in and see if they're here.
All right. While he's doing that, yeah, I liked it. I don't know. Like I have like as you guys know, a stupid problem where I love bad jokes. And I kind of frame it like that, but it's interesting. If you're subscribed to Red America, check that one out. I like it. I'm working on another one. What's up?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're here.
Perfect. No, this is a good quitting time. Closing time. What was that terrible song? All right. That's it for us for the night, everybody. Remember that we are a 100% people-funded institute. So if you want to help support this institute, please join us at patreon.com/MidwesternMarks. And that would be
based.
I'm so dumb. Good night, everybody.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brother. for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor. We defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come,